Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this exclusive virtual roundtable on L&D the next 2 years in partnership with Upside LMS Plethora. I'm Neha Pant. Some of you may have met me before in other forums, and I'm going to be your host for the next 90 minutes. We would request you to be on video and audio. This is an interactive small group session. And of course, in just a little while, the spotlight is going to be on you. So good idea to be on video. Before we formally get started, how about we do a quick round of introductions? And as you may have heard me say this to Padma Shri, who's been in some of our forums before, and she knows the twist, so to say. If I could request everyone to tell us what mood you are in this afternoon. What is your state of mind? What is that one emotion that you're sitting on right now? And if you could indicate that to us in form of a prefix to your name, and I'll tell you how we can do that here in Zoom. If you've not used this feature of Zoom before, let me show you how it's done. So on your video, if you were to right click, there'll be an option to rename. And from there, you can edit your name. And of course, you can add a prefix there, an adjective that describes your state of mind right now. And this is my state of mind. I'm quite delighted to be hosting you all. Now, while you add that prefix, don't delete your name, please. A few times in the past, people deleted their names and just kept the adjectives, so it became very difficult for us to address them. So tell us, what is your state of mind? What are you feeling this afternoon before we get started today? It's going to be an interactive session, yes, and we are going to put the spotlight on you, so please do ensure you have your mic and camera working. We are going to do this roundtable in a slightly creative way. And like I said, some people already know those tricks, but I'd like you to sort of not give it away just yet. So Michael is ruminating. Tell us, what are you ruminating about, Michael? Amit is elated. We have a receptive Vikram with us. We have excited Akhilesh. Honey is happy, and look at the alliteration there. Excited Vijay, thrilled Sunanda. We have excited Padma Shri, intrigued Chris. Ravi is still figuring out. Okay, he's used a suffix. Not bad. Ravi is cool today. Looking forward, and yes, that's a long prefix, so you may not be able to see Dr. Pradeep's full name there, but I do recognize him from the video there. Vidisha, you're just joining in. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And if you've missed our, fun activity that we were doing, I'm also guessing you're all L&D bigwigs, so you may have, tried all kinds of icebreakers in your virtual sessions. So, Vidisha, quickly, if you could add one prefix to your name and tell us, the mood, the state of mind that you're in this afternoon as we get started. We also have excited Akriti, Pranjali, Vijay, and Amit are still perhaps figuring out what state of mind they are in. So do tell us what you're thinking this afternoon. And let me, on that note, also bring up my presentation to show you what is it that we have in store for you. So of course,
Sure.
we have discussed.
Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, yes, Vidisha, we can.
Sure. So the state of mind, I think I will say, is pensive today.
All right, wonderful. So if you were to right click on your video, you will get an option to rename. And you'll be able to add that word as a prefix to your name. So maybe you could write pensive Vidisha, like you see the rest of us sitting on either in a delightful state of mind or ruminating or excited. But yeah, that's what we thought we will begin with. Of course, we have 90 minutes with us, and this is a short and sweet agenda. We plan to set the context, tell you, what is it that we want to talk about. Of course, there is a keynote planned for you on L&D for next 2 years. What is it looking like? Now, the roundtable conversation, of course, is happening in form of fishbowl conversations today, and we will explain to you how we do that. And that's where we would want all of you to participate. There will be some insights that we will generate from that conversation, and we will give it like a nice summary in the end. And of course, then we will have, the closing remarks from the Upside LMS team. So let me quickly show you who we have with us today in this session. Now you see all those names and the visuals on the screen. So we have Amit Gautam, who is the founder and CEO of Upside LMS Plethora. We have Vijay Gogoi, who is our keynote speaker today. He's the executive director and lead at KPMG Academy. We have have Vidisha Banerjee, who's Group VP Learning Culture and Employer Branding at Welspun Group. Nikita Vasudeva, who's Global Head Talent OD DNI at ACG. Karmishta Mitra, I think, is joining a little later. She's Group Head SVP HR CLO at Axis Bank. Akriti Vajpayee, who's VP HR Jubilant Foodworks. Hani Dove, who's DGM Skill Development Usha International. We have Sunanda Govindan, Talent Development HR at Arco Lab. We have Padmashri Nagaraj, who's L&D Head at SLK. Then we have Vikram Sharma, who's Head Commercial HR at Tata Motors. Mohit Gupta, who's a National Training Development Manager at Amway India. Akhilesh Senger, Talent Management L&D Corporate HR at Varroc. We have Ravi Gupta, Head CL and SD. Sorry if I hope I've got that right. Head HR and Admin at Hindustan Zinc Limited. We have Chris Gomes, Head L&D SBI Mutual Funds Management. And we have Dr. Pradeep, Head Tata Steel Management Development Center. And we have Michael Fernandez, Head LNOD at CRISIL. Now, if I'm missing someone, please do let me know because that was the list that we got. If you've managed to get someone at the last minute, and if I'm missing you, my apologies. Do let me know in the chat there. Now you see all those names and the designations on the screen, right? So you know who you have with you in this session. But what I'd like to invite you to do is that tell us one interesting fact about you, right? Which is aside, what you do at work, right? So while I'm asking you to do that, perhaps I should lead by example and tell you one interesting fact about myself. Well, I am really fond of mountains, climbing mountains, and I've given myself a goal of covering India's 10 best treks. The highest that I've climbed so far is 16,000 feet. I have covered about 20 trails in the Himalayas, and I have quite a few lined up, next and on my list. So that's something interesting about me. I would love to learn about you. And of course, the team Upside LMS here and the SHRM team would love to learn more. So in the interest of time, if you could tell us one interesting fact about yourself in the chat, that will be really good to start this conversation today. And with that, while you share that with us in the chat, and there's something that's coming up. I think that's Amit mentioning something to me. But yes, the interactions come alive when we have high engagement in chat. So please do share with us one interesting fact. We know the organizations that you're representing and the roles that you are playing, but something which you do apart from work that drives you, that's your passion, that's your hobby, that you like to indulge in. Do tell us about that in the chat window there. With that, I will also move on and invite Amit Gautam, who is the founder and CEO, Upside LMS Plethora, to tell us what is in store for us and do a quick opening address. Over to you, Gautam.
Thank you, Neha. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Neha, for such a warm welcome. And, I have been in a few sessions, but yeah, this was really interesting. And I'm really elated, not because of the session only, but also, in general, I think life is good so far. And I think, I'm really excited to be part of this group today. And it's not that you meet such a large group of leaders in L&D field often. So for me, it's a privilege to be around. So, thank you all for joining us today. And I think with so much happening so fast in the last 8 to 9 months, I'm really looking forward to, hear from all of you, learn from your experiences so far. And I'm sure, I think, I was just reading somewhere that, almost within days, kind of 3 billion workforce came to a kind of standstill. And I think L&D globally forms about 1% of that workforce, which is a big number. And I think, the whole onus of keeping things running, if not whole, but a lot of the responsibility did kind of come on the shoulders of L&D very, very fast. And, we didn't really have time to prepare. We didn't time to plan, I think, to keep companies running. And with the, in the scenario where companies are shutting down, industries are almost getting wiped out, like aviation, maybe hotels, travel and, manufacturing coming under a big hit. I think it has, been a high pressure event for especially the L&D team, because while, things are not very cooperative, but to keep a business running, to keep a company running. And for example, I think Big Basket, they just had a press note that they lost 80% of their workforce in 2 days of lockdown. And then they had to rehire about 12,000 people in just 16 days. I think there's the scale of losing so many people and hiring them again. I can only imagine the kind of, the responsibility on the L&D team to make sure that all of those new hires are ready for the job, because the customers don't expect less just because things have changed at your side. So they may actually expect more because of the new rules and new things. So I think for me, it has really been, for the last 8 months, been talking to so many prospects and customers. It has been a sea change in the way we look at things. And I'm really, really looking forward to hear from your experiences. You have seen much more than I would have talked to a lot of people about. I think, you have so many people in your workforces being looked at. So I think for me, today is a learning experience. I am really, really excited here. And, I'm, from my perspective, I am keen to understand, how we managed the last 8 months. What was our quick reactions to the activities happening all around us? How do we see the L&D for the next 2 years per se? Of course, things will become more long term, but some of those things will actually be more pertinent in the next 2 years. How do we see that? How are we looking at agility coming into the picture? Digital adoption, delivery mechanisms, design of learning. How are these things impacted, and how are you on the ground doing those things on a daily basis? How are you preparing for the short term and the long term? And so for me, that's something which I want to take away today, to understand how things might pan out in the next 2 years. And I know the role of L&D is not just kind of shifting a little bit. It is changing to a large extent. It is not just going to be training delivery or making sure people are completing their courses. It is going to become a bigger part of the business context. It's no more about just man hours of training completions done. It is about preparing a workforce for today and for future. So I think from my side, I have a lot of takeaways I'm expecting today. And in looking at the group today, I'm sure we will learn a lot. So again, thank you all, and I welcome every one of you again on this afternoon. And I would like to invite my friend and somebody I work closely with, Vijay Gogoi, who is the executive director and lead of KPMG Academy. He has, I think, seen the thick and thin of the last few months, and I'm sure he has a lot to share with us today. So Vijay, welcome, and I hand the mic over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit. First of all, I'm really, really excited to be here. That's why I put my name as Excited Vijay. Also, very nice to see some familiar faces, former colleagues, and clients. It's very good to see you again, and of course, very, very, very excited to meet everyone else. For the first time. Like Amit said, I'm actually looking forward to this session. In terms of what what everybody has been doing. I mean, what are the things that you have tried in the past 6-7 months, right? Or probably longer. What has worked? What has not worked? But I would also like to share some of the things that what I have seen has happened, because as a consultant, I do get to work with a wide range of clients. Even if I'm not working with the client, I'm definitely having a lot of conversations, so I know what kind of problems people are dealing with. So I'd like to share some of those, and the way I've kind of planned what I wanted to share is some of it is what is happening, and some of it is also kind of like imagining what we could potentially do. And more than it's a kind of a sharing which I want to do, and kind of get your reactions to it. What do you think? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? What is it? So yeah. So let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So. Yeah, so I mean, as a background for all of this is, just tech adoption has just shot off like a rocket, right, over the past 7-8 months, and that's that's across industries, right, across industries, and and the thing is, the rate at which this has happened, right, the person who is inside this rocket, which is the employee, right, may not exactly be, the happiest. or maybe very unsure of what is to be done, etc. Right? So in the next 2 years, what the way I see this is that the role of L&D is exactly how do we address the needs of this employee over the next 2 years. That's, I think, in a very simple simple language. I think that's what the next 2 years is going to be. But then there are certain other themes that if I double click on it, there are certain other themes that we can look at, right? One is definitely there will be a new, what I'm calling it, a new routes in the learning journey. The learning journey is that across the board, it'll go. There will be a shift. There will be changes, right? Second thing is that of engagement versus efficiency. There's going to be a push and pull, a tug of war between engagement. Also, you can call it effectiveness, engagement versus efficiency. And lastly, I call it vaccine versus medicine, but I think it's more of a question as to what you think the role of L&D is going to change. Is it going to change, or what is it that we need to do differently, right? That's three broad things I wanted to cover. So talking about new routes for in learning journeys, the problem, what we are seeing is that how does one keep up, right? There is there are new business models that a lot of companies are adopting. The regulations have changed, new technology has come in, and of course there's a lot of change in expectations. And what this is resulting is that people have to, across functions, have to learn a whole host of new skills in a very short period of time, right? All sorts of skills. And one of the things I just wanted to take an example of the finance workforce. And the reason I talk about it is because KPMG is very well known for finance, and we do a lot of work in the finance area. So we have clients, or we have people in companies such as yours, where the traditional role of finance is undergoing a sea change. It is from a very traditional accounting role to a very important business partner sort of a role. In HR, we always call HR business partners, etc. But traditionally, that's not been the case in finance. Now, in this kind of a scenario, and on top of that, there is a whole host of technologies that have come into finance, right? So if I were to just take a look at that, there is the finance skill set, the finance curriculum for our the Finance Academy. This is something that we have deployed in a large number of companies, and till like last year, and I say last year, almost end of 2020, but till 2019, our Finance Academy consisted of only these core finance technical skills, which is FP&A, accounting, reporting, tax, investor relations, strategic finance. That's all. But now, when I look at my finance curriculum, I need to do everything which is there in core finance. Over and above, I need to do digital mindset, robotic process automation, agile, data analytics, visualization, storytelling. And I have to include everything around soft skills. Now the important thing, that the change that is happening, I mean, people used to do soft skills even earlier, but what people are now asking is that everything has to be done in context, in the context of my function, in the context of my business. Like, for example, if I'm talking of a business communication, if I'm trying to teach somebody how to write an email, it's not a generic email writing class that somebody is going to. It is about how do I write an email if I have to communicate that I'm reducing your budget by 20%, or this is a capital budgeting project and I'm asking for approval for this. What is it that I need to write, right? So what we are actually seeing over here is that you're kind of blending all the technical, digital, and soft skills kind of coming together. And a lot of companies, I've seen in a lot of clients, the functional is usually done by the business, the soft skills done by behavioral leadership, done by HR and L&D. We are kind of seeing like the merging of the two, and this what I have shown you on the screen this is something real. This is something which clients have actually asked for. And I'm just taking finance as an example. And we have something called something on data science. We have a data science academy. We've got risk academy, all of that stuff. And this kind of a change is across the board. What we have seen, where people are demanding like a combination of or integrated sort of an approach. The next topic, which the next trend which I wanted to talk about is this whole engagement versus efficiency, debate, and which I'm pretty sure in the next 2 years all of us are going to kind of face. So basically, what has happened is and before I get into the thing, I just wanted to define efficiency. Efficiency, in a very simplistically, I wanted to define it as the number of the output, which is in terms of the training hours or the coverage, and the input is of course the budget. So in the pandemic, there was a huge efficiency jump, which is budgets got reduced, but the outputs increased very significantly, right? So it's suddenly it's something, the efficiency jump, which is kind of almost unthinkable a few months ago. But now that people have tasted blood, especially CFOs, they are not going to go back. We've had so many conversations with clients where they're saying that, okay, we have seen this kind of efficiency jump, we're not going to go back. But then going digital, while it has worked in some, in last few months, there's a very big learner engagement risk. And the risk comes because in the beginning of the pandemic, there was this approach of chop, lift, and shift. You had an 8-hour training program, you chopped it up into 3-4 sessions, and you just delivered it, right? That is something which is in the long run may not work. And already we are seeing a lot of murmurs about, hey, this is not working. There's a lot of learner fatigue, and attention spans are low, etc. And of course, the other major issue is that nowadays, I'm sure all of us are facing this, is the work is blending into personal life, and you're in calls till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or even later. And when you have so much of work, then where do you do learning, right? So there is this whole engagement versus efficiency debate, push and pull, where the organization would want to remain at the same efficiency level. There are a lot of headwinds from an engagement perspective. And whenever there are headwinds, what will happen is there will be, whenever the pandemic kind of eases, and when the options of classroom training, etc., come back on the table, there will be increasing push to go back to the previous models, right? And the moment you try to go back to the previous models, your efficiency will take a hit, right? So that's the kind of push and pull, and I think a lot of us will probably face it. And so how do you get out of it? And this is some of the things that we have seen, and we've kind of increasingly seeing, is that there are some broad three ways what we're thinking how we can drive engagement. One is, of course, good design. It's very it's straightforward. It's nothing new, but that's something that one has to invest in. There's good design. And there are two others, star power and credentialing, which I will talk to you a little bit later. So now, just talking about good design. Now, good design, it is something, it's like it's a no-brainer, right? If you have to deliver training, you have to get the design right. There is also, classroom training can also be have a good design, can have a bad design, but the problem, what happens is that in classroom training, because of the fact that somebody is captive in a classroom or outside captive in a classroom, maybe outside the organization, and there is a instructor who is actually kind of taking the whole session and having the engagement. Some of the bad design may sometimes get hidden behind this whole the classroom format, right? Even if the design is not that great, the facilitator can still make an impact and still cover that up. But what you'll see is, in a virtual training, it is very hard to hide that design. So you will it will come out very starkly, And the moment it comes out very starkly, people will, engagement will drop, effectiveness will drop. So companies will have to, everybody has to focus on design in terms of making sure it is completely outcome oriented. It is very sharp, and very importantly, it covers, since the sessions are smaller, you just have to be very clear on what you're going to cover, what you're not going to cover. In most cases, you might have to leave a lot of content out. Earlier, you may have you would have included a lot of stuff in your training, but here you have to be very sharp into what you want to do and what you don't want to do, right? And what I'm saying, this is not really anything new, but it's just that the focus on design has to be very, 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 very sharp. Beyond good design, the other thing what one could do is use star power, right? Very recently, I actually, since I mentioned the chat that I'm a tennis player, and I signed up for Serena Williams, who teaches tennis, right, on masterclass. I don't know how many of you have tried a masterclass. It's a brilliant, I would say, format. And the thing is that since it was Serena Williams and there are so many other topics where very, very well-known people were teaching, it automatically attracted me, automatically motivated me to even finish some of those courses. So I think that's a basic principle that one could use to drive engagement. Like suppose you have somebody who's a well-known expert or a leader in the company who's driving some of these, even not the entire training, even some part of it, that drives engagement, that drives motivation to kind of, get the engagement going in any session. And the last one, what I would say is credentialing. Any kind of course or programs or certifications that can make a material impact in someone's profile is something which is highly motivating for anyone. And here I just wanted to kind of tell you something. I'm sure all of you must have heard and read about the tremendous boom that is going on right now in EdTech. So many companies have launched their courses, and there's Upgrad, there's Simplilearn, and so many. It is a market that is growing. It is about 4,000 crores right now. It's growing at about 37% year on year. Because of this big size as well as the high growth rate, it is attracting all sorts of universities and players across the globe into the country. And they are not going to everybody is not going to be around only for the B2C market. They'll come to the B2B market also. That's where people like us play, right? And that's a perfect place where one could customize programs for your own organizations and drive training programs, drive the engagement, drive the motivation in your companies, right? And it also makes a material impact. It makes an impact on somebody's profile. So those are some of the ideas and what we could do from from an engagement standpoint. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is vaccine versus medicine. And it is not so much I want to share. It is. I personally am very interested in understanding from you as a part of the discussion as to how do you see the role of L&D evolving, right? Obviously we all the vaccine is always better than being the medicine, but in this changed circumstances, I think one of the questions I would really love to hear from all of you is that how do you see L&D evolving in the next couple of years? Do you think what kind of role will it play? What kind of what are the challenges you think you'll face, and how do you see this moving forward? So that's what I had to share as of now. I'm happy to take questions, but Neha, I will leave that to you to run. I mean, it's totally up to you how you want to run this.
Sure. So if anyone has questions, we can definitely take a couple, and of course, then after that we get everyone to discuss and maybe find answers to the question that you've asked, Vijay. Anything anyone wants to share at this point before we move forward?
Hi, Sharmishta here. I don't have a question right now, but I thought it was Amazing presentation, Vijay. I thought you captured some very key points. Really good, really good. Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives.
Thank you.
They were fresh. To me, they sounded quite fresh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Vijay. This is Michael here. Thank you for what you shared. Extremely interesting. I just have a question in the sense of, do you see a situation where L&D would be required to bring in an agile perspective to careers at 3 levels? Because this is something that we in CRISIL are looking at. Leadership agility per se is a no-brainer. Yeah, responding quickly in real time and taking business calls. The second would be in terms of specialist skill sets who don't have vertical headroom, but they do have aspirations. And when growth is ever more nuanced, you really don't have that kind of number of vacancies to offer. And the third would be skill sets who have been good, have served their, played their knock, played their innings, so to speak, but need skills to be refreshed or to be reskilled or upskilled. How do you see L&D responding to this challenge, which I believe is going to be afflicting most of our organizations?
Yeah. So I can take the I can answer that question in relation to my current company as well as my previous company. I used to work for Accenture before this.
Right.
Not immediately before this, but sometime back.
Right.
And we faced in KPMG as well as in Accenture, we faced the exact same problem. Mm-hmm. Because you always have a set of people who are very specialist in a certain area. Right. Whether it is finance or whether it is even HR or even within it, and you have certain set of people who are, what we call as a partner track, which are basically sales and operations sort of. So there, I think, what we have done, or what most consulting organizations done, they have called out a separate career track, right? Separate career track. Now the thing is, if I take the specialist career track as an example, what most I think all consulting companies have done is that you have defined various levels, and the various levels are you have clear definition of what it means to be at a particular level. Especially when you go to the problem always happens when you go to the senior levels, right? When you define somebody senior, like a let's say VP versus senior VP, how do you define it? And that definition is not just from a point of view of whether I have skills or not. Skills is a given. You will have to have. You move from one level to the other depending on what's your contribution not just to the company but to the industry. So what's your overall how well you're known in the market, how many papers you've published. So that's the kind of a thing that most companies have done. And I think so I don't know if that answers your question.
So partially yes. Would love to catch up later. So don't want to hold up the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, sure.
Right. So one more if anyone has. Otherwise, we'll get into the discussion now. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Vijay. I'm Ravi Gupta. So I would say that this was a killer presentation and well articulated. So you have covered almost everything in it. And one has to deep dive going forward. So I would just substantiate with one example. Like earlier we had coal engine, and then we had diesel and electrical engine. So what is next in the L&D? So that we need to think and go forward.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And maybe with that, Vijay, we should move ahead and maybe find out after coal engine, steam engine, what's next for L&D. So if you could stop sharing your screen, please. All right, now this is the time when we want all of you to be on video. So please turn your cameras on. And I'm guessing as L&D professionals, you can't be camera shy. So we are going to do fishbowl conversations, of course, now. Some of you, of course, may have done those before or may know. For those of you who may not, so here's for how we want to do this. This is a small group which we have further divided into 2 mini groups. Now I will show you the names of people who are part of the first group and are going to have the conversation. I'll in just a minute I'll show you that slide. Now we'll have 15 minutes, 2 windows of 15 minutes. So the first group discusses for 15 minutes. I will appoint 2 observers and we will get feedback from the observers after the first round of conversation is done. We will then move on to the second group, which will also have speakers and observers, and that's how we will do this in 2 rounds. So if you have any questions, do let me know in the chat window. In the interest of time, we'll try to keep this quick and brief. I know you may have more to share. If let's say we have to if I have to move to another person to ensure that everyone gets an opportunity to talk, I would really urge you to share your insights in the chat window. We know there's a lot that will emerge from this group, and especially from a group of L&D professionals. So we don't want to lose out on your insights at all. So please do keep that chat window alive. With that, let me quickly bring up my screen and show you what the first group is going to discuss and who are the members. So the first round of conversation is on how will content, technology, and overall learning ecosystem evolve in the next 2 years? And put more simply, what Ravi just said, what's the next engine that we are going to explore or discover? With that, there are these members in the group: Vikram Sharma, Akriti Vajpayee, Ravi Gupta, Hani Dave, Michael Fernandez, and Nikita Vasudeva. If I'm missing someone, do highlight, if there's a name that I've taken, but you're not here with us, Amit, if you could highlight that in the chat, so I appoint someone else from the other group. Karmishta and Rukmini, your names are reflecting in blue because we would like you to be the observer of this first conversation. And I will come to you after the discussion is over for you to tell us what really stood out for you in this conversation and what may be, top 2 to 3 insights that you may like to summarize for us. Yeah, with that, shall we get started? You can give me a thumbs up. Zoom has nice reactions. So on your videos, I will see if you're all ready. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm also going to share the question here in the chat window, just in case you'd like to have a look at it once again. With that, for the rest of the members whose names I haven't taken, you can be off video and on mute for a little while. We'll bring you back in the second round. All right, so it's a freewheeling conversation, so feel free to kickstart. Whoever's ready.
Well, belly up.
I think that's the dilemma right now. So
I can start with a few inputs and then I can come back when there is a gap.
Sure. So 15 minutes is what you have. Your time starts now.
Yeah. So we talk on safety. Like safety today is not a line function. So first of all, we should think that learning and development should not be anymore a line function. It means that every employee, every manager, every functional head, including the head of the organization, is responsible for their own learning and learning of their colleagues, peers. So that is very important, that we need to shift from the earlier version to the next version, that learning and development should not be a line function anymore. And as a L&D professionals, we should propagate this. Now comes that whenever earlier trainings were happening, so it was like more of delivering a training. So people were not thinking of what is the objective and what could be the impact. Going forward, when this COVID started, and when we started the training, it was totally focused, as Vijay was saying, about what it is there in the training that will impact. So it was like some question generated, and we were answering to those questions through a training session, and lot of interactions happened, and from there we picked up some solutions and then implemented also. So the summary of this is, like, whatever training we do, it should have a business impact for sure. And of course, on the technology part, earlier most of the organization were using Excel sheet, sign-off sheets for attendance, feedback, and everything. So that has almost transformed to the automation, and everything is digitized. So we need to adhere to this to reduce the time spent on the step activities and focus more on the design of the program, the need of the program, what impact it is going to make for the organization, for the individual growth and the engagement of the employee. Then the fourth is that we should also think about what is there for the employee, for them to get something in the long term. So there comes some program, for example, work integrated learning program. So we can start off MBAs, post graduation, BTech or MTech. So there's lot of programs available on the virtual platform also, with many of the good names. But at the same time, we can also prompt for classroom training, where actually they go to the institutes in between. That is very important, and there where you can actually retain the talent. So that is one pain area for the organization, that attrition remains high for the talented people. So most of them just jump. So there is one thing where you can stop the attrition rate also. So that can be a very good strategy. Now comes the technology part in the training. So when we are giving a training, it is no more a classroom training or virtual training. So we have graduated to the simulation part also, or the real life drama happening during the training, where the employee learns a lot. So we need to create those kind of capabilities within the organization. Now comes the fifth part, that where if we see what the government is doing. So we have national skill qualification framework and skill sectors also. So how we can leverage those available facilities and strengthen them also. So at Hindustan Zinc, we have taken certain initiatives where we have created curriculum matching with the world best programs, and we benchmarked and we launched also, and we got the fruits also. So we can share at length going forward. So till now, we can go to the next participant, and we can I can join at in between also. Thank you.
You can also share that with us in the chat window. Yes, Michael, should I come to you next? I know you've taken yourself off mute in the beginning.
Okay, thank you. You're very observant. So I think if we just step back a bit, the ruminating part, so much is changing. There's a new way of learning because of the situation we are in, obviously virtual. As I completely agree with Vijay, initially it was rehashing the classroom and and dishing it out. That doesn't work. So there's this whole challenge of engagement. And how do you engage as well as get the participants to apply this to in a setting when oftentimes they're not, even if they're on camera, you really don't know what's going through their mind. So Ravi has called out some of the implications. Vijay too, we will see a sharp uptick in gamification. There'll be a move to more engaging modes like drama, which again, Ravi has called out. And the application of learning, so the challenge to engage in smaller time windows, smaller patience of participants and the organization. The second is a new way of doing business. L&D has a huge role here. Even our salespeople are not meeting the customer physically, right? And unless you have a manufacturing setup that's churning out widgets, sometimes you're entirely virtual. So the work with the CEO and the direct reports, how are they responding to changes? There's a tremendous role at a senior level that is called for. Even when it comes to strategic skill sets, or bringing in digital skill sets within context, digitization, huge role for L&D here. The third is a new way of working at home, where home and work is interspersed, and such a challenge to get people to adopt change, new platforms, new ways of working, new formats of virtual teams. Cross-cultural work is definitely going to be the norm. So L&D has tremendous opportunity and a need to offer inputs over here. The fourth aspect that I'd like to call out is it's really a new way of living, where there's no end, right, to the office hours oftentimes. And in the middle of the office hour, you got to step out or attend to something personal. I've had 2 phone calls. Yeah, and I don't know if it's a courier or what, so I'm sorry, I've even disturbed this call. Along with this new way of living is the challenge of loneliness, the challenge of mental wellness. I believe next year we're going to see a huge uptick in illness. Even now, there is a learning leader in Bangalore who I connect with, and he said, a couple of doctors in Bangalore have said they're moving from treating illness to counseling. A whole host of people are coming in with seemingly unwell. There's nothing wrong with them. Diagnosis after diagnosis, negative. It's a matter of counseling. Doctors are moving into that zone. How much more we in L&D, how much more we should have a handle on our people and have the wherewithal to bring in not quacks, but bring in real experts who can really make meaningful contributions to health and wellness, starting with the leadership and the way in which people managers lead. Is there empathy? Is there care? So I'd like to pause here.
Sure, thank you so much. That was quite powerful. Let me go to Akriti. I think, Akriti, you took yourself off mute as well. I think that's a good cue for me. So yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Neha. And I think thank you, Ravi and Michael, for sharing your thoughts. I think, if I were to, share some of my thoughts on this topic, and I think I'll start with the question that actually Vijay left us with on his last slide, that, how do we see the role of L&D evolving? And of course, then looking at it more sharper in terms of content ecosystem. I think businesses are evolving, and I think most of us, be it whatever business and industry that we are a part of, in the last 6 to 8 months have seen a significant amount of disruption and transformation. Business transformation, future of work, things that we spoke about always for the future is now a reality of today. And I think as L&D professionals, to be very, very glued on to that, to see that, how is it that the business model is changing? Where is it that your business, your industry needs more skills? What are the kind of new skills and capabilities that will be required depending upon how business is transforming is really going to be the key, and help us define, what the priorities and specific areas for us to focus upon would be. Of course, I think a couple of realities which are again agnostic, irrespective of what industry you're in, is that hybrid workplace is going to be a reality of tomorrow, right? Agile force is going to be a reality of tomorrow, and therefore, what is it that as L&D that we can do to ensure that we are able to bring this to life in a way where our workforce is able to contribute, is able to flourish, is able to add value to the business in the way possible. Some of the things that, top of mind, of course, that we need to focus on is, one, to ensure that our workforce is more digitally adept and enabled. Very, very sharp, strategic, analytical bent of mind, very adept with new technologies. When I think one of the slides Vijay spoke about was how the finance transformation perhaps has changed in terms of skill. And I think that's very true when it goes across the different organizations. And therefore, as an L&D professional, what is it that you can do today to kind of raise the digital maturity of your organization? What is it that, from the key skills perspective, you need to build across the organization to ensure that your workforce is more digitally adept for tomorrow? The second thing is, how is it that you are able to almost bring in new people in this entire hybrid workplace, ensure that they're being integrated with the organization, ensure that you're still being able to value the diversity, you're being inclusive enough. How are you being able to empower managers to be able to lead, and propagate the kind of culture that you want to in your organization, right? And I think those will require very, very different cues and a very different kind of sensitization with the managers. I think the third thing, and that's more around the learning ecosystem and the way people learn. I think another change that we are seeing, of course, I think in the last 6 months, and what some of you mentioned, there's been immense amount of content that's been made available, right? Immense amount. There is a webinar for almost every other thing. There's there's content for almost everything, right? And many organizations, have tied up with content providers to ensure that in these times, employees have access to good quality learning content, right? I mean, we too, okay, we've also done that. So everybody's done that, right? But I think what's also happening is, and it's obviously creating excess choice, excess content with employees, and beyond a point of time, at least we saw, that the initial excitement kind of dies down. So how do you really sustain this kind of ecosystem? I think what's going to happen is that, in a playing field where there is so much available, relevant and personalized content will be really the key. And we've seen that making a difference in our organization as well. We tied up with one of the leading content providers and we said, hey, this is almost like a Netflix, go ahead, choose what you want to learn. And we saw very little and low adoption, after the first spike. And what we then went on to do is curate meaningful learning journeys out of some of the open source content. And the minute we did that, we saw a complete spike in change and we saw many, many more people adopting it, right? So personalization of content and relevance of content will be the key. And I'd like to almost call that out as consumerizing the employee experience. It's just about how each of us goes shop online, right? There's a system that understands our buying pattern, our buying behavior, understands the products that we are interested in, understands our complete pattern, and is able to almost show us the kind of ads that we are most likely to click on. And therefore, from a learning technology perspective, can it be as intuitive and as intelligent as that to be able to understand what's most relevant for me? How do I like to learn? When do I like to learn? And what is it that I like to learn, to be able to throw up the most relevant content in a very, very meaningful curated journey for me. So I think from a technology perspective, from an ecosystem perspective, if we can almost graduate, to that, that's going to be very, very useful. And last but not the least, and I think somebody also spoke about it, is while everything is going virtual, how do we activate the social connection piece? Because at the end of the day, that's one part I think which we are all missing a lot. And what we started doing, and again started seeing a lot of positive response towards it, is small peer learning sessions, and I think that's going to pick up more. While that concept has always been in existence, but I think now it has more meaning, because you may have people go through a virtual independent learning experience, but then how do you couple that up with a really strong peer learning connect, peer learning engagement forum where people are able to come together and share some of their learnings. And that adds back the social element into learning, which we believe will help the virtual learning almost sustain a much, much longer time.
Right, Akriti, a lot of insights, and I'm sure you have more. So
No, I think that's about it. Sorry, yes, I took more time.
I'll quickly go to Hani, and Vikram, I'll come to you last. So go ahead.
Okay, so thanks, Ravi, Michael, and Akriti. And building on to what Akriti said, one thing, we are all digitally connected morning till night. There is a lot of digital fatigue. What I clearly see in the next 2 years is, we need to digitally, or not even digitally, we need to energize people to perform what they have to, rather than there being a burnout. And so whatever we offer in the L&D space, role-driven, skill-driven, purpose-driven, small nuggets, which we all know of, and minimalistic in its approach. Minimalistic being give what's needed rather than just giving everything. One important thing which so far, L&D has been a lot about technical skills, functional skills, and like Michael rightly mentioned, focusing on the mental health of people, of employees, and having curated courses or sessions where people can talk about this, whatever, and in fact, an entire system where they can either go through courses, talk to someone. That should be a part of our system now. People are going through a lot of stress, and this is not lessening in the coming 2 years. Yeah, these are the points that come to my mind. Of course, we are using technology, but yeah, I do see there's a lot of burnout happening. Yeah, digital detox.
Thanks so much,
Yeah,
Sunny, for that.
yeah. And one last point I want to mention is also we need to think of some alternate ways. One is we're so glued to videos and laptops and computers all the time. How about exploring podcast as a medium for teaching people? How about connecting people and calls and just giving them projects to work on without having to be on the phone or on the computer all the time? It's by the end of the day, I don't think there is a lot of space to learn. There is a lot of tiredness. Need to empty the cup with the very different methodologies, I would say. Being creative in the way we teach or we learn, group sessions. And yeah, these are the things that come to my mind.
Do a digital detox in the Himalayas. I tell you, it works best. Vikram, if I could quickly come to you for, as a last speaker of this group. Go ahead.
Okay, what I'll share, good evening, everyone, with my colleagues over here is the brief was on 3 elements. That's how I prepared, and I'll not repeat what my learned colleagues have mentioned before. So there was how is content, technology, and the learning ecosystem, 3 elements. So I'll just say 2 points on the content and 2 points on technology, because I think the learning ecosystem, how is it evolving in the next 2 years, has been extensively dealt with. Of course, Vijay and others have also dealt with the content. But on the content, 2 points that come to my mind is how do we in HR or L&D ensure a sustainable model by creating sequential follow-through interventions with a tracking mechanism on the progress. That means what we call an action learning project or post-training implementation. That is also to be kind of taken note of while we adhere or focus on all various other elements of the content part. The second point under the content that I would like to share is how all of us, who are in the learning space and delivering trainings, particularly the learning partners, need to hone up their skills on body language and tonality. Because in an offline, session, and unlike a classroom session, what is required is how a trainer or a speaker or a facilitator is bringing energy to the classroom, and how he's able to draw the attention of the participants or the audience in an offline medium. So these are 2 points on the content side. On the technology, apart from various other things that have been said, I think one is how the learning experience platform, other than the LMS, is going to evolve. And when I say the learning experience platform, I mean to say the learning content from various sources like internal or external, could be websites, wikis, or internal company intranet, digital platforms, for example, Edcast, etc. So that's one. Second point is how the evolved use of machine learning for digital analytics as well as learning analytics is going to shape and also take into consideration the preferences of users, the preferences of content, preferences related to the formation of maybe an interest-based groups and the action plans. So rest, I think, have all been covered. So these are the 2 points in technology and 2 points in content I would like to share.
Thank you so much, Vikram, for keeping it that sharp and concise. If you still have something more to share, of course, the chat window is there.
Right.
And I would now want to come to Karmishtha, quickly. If you could tell us what stood out for you from this conversation, and if you were to summarize how is L&D evolving, what will be top 3 things that you'd say?
Yeah, so I thought, this was such a beautiful conversation, Neha. And everyone, and I'm so delighted that I'm a part of all this because there's so many takeaways for self as well. So I've made some copious notes. So let me start with, yeah. So, so I think for me, the points that stood out, I'm just noting how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 11 points.
You have 2 minutes to say them all.
Okay. No, there are very powerful 11 points. Let me try and do that in maybe a couple of minutes or 3.
Sure.
So I think the key points that came out is L&D and business, with the changing business models and business transformation, L&D needs to prioritize and really should be working in tandem with that. Very key point. The second point that came out was, with this whole workplace changing, the hybrid workforce, the agile workforce changing, and how the role that L&D then needs to play with respect to productivity tools, the new ways of working, and getting people aligned with that. The third point I think many of us mentioned is this L&D's role of driving the digital capability building in an organization. I thought that was that stood out very well. The fourth point is really about, I thought very good ideas on the content part of it, the too much of content, consumerism, how do you personalize and how do you hyper personalize and make it a consumer-based approach for learning experience. So that was the fourth which stood out for me. Then I think, again, continuing in the content, we also heard about the simulation, the new age content that's become very important. And, now that we move from a classroom session, that's very, very critical. So there were a lot of rich discussions on the content side, including the last point that Bikram mentioned, that ensure a sustainable model to track what's working, what's not working. So there were a lot of rich inputs on content. The other input that came in was this whole
Oops, have we lost her? If anyone can hear her, please give me a plus
it
one.
makes a huge, huge difference. The final 2 points that I wanted to possibly talk about is, I thought these points also came, and I'm just calling out Honey's name here. I didn't call out others' name, but I thought Honey put it very crisply, the role of L&D. So it is what you do. It's role-driven, skill-driven, purpose-driven, minimalistic. And she also talked about the mental health. And also I like the innovative points that came out in terms of podcasts and get people to do projects. Just don't hassle them and harass them on calls and all of that. So I thought that was very powerful. I just saw a glimpse of that today morning, and that really works. And finally, I think in the initial part, I took up a lot of points from Akriti, followed by Michael and Ravi. Then I touched upon Honey's, and then, 2 very powerful points from Bikram in terms of, the whole trainers, the facilitators, body language, tonality, their ability to energize. Oh, huge, huge one, big one. If you are on video, then your body language and tone. If you are off video, then your tone, your energy and all of that. And finally, I think the point that Bikram made on the whole and take and data driven, learning experience. Learning experience is one point he mentioned, and data driven is the other point that he mentioned. Both are, I think, super cool and super important. So thank you. So with great points from each one of us. So great learning.
Thank you. And what a lovely summary. Thank you so much. All right. On that note, in the interest of time, I quickly want to move forward and get the second group in. But before that, I've been getting these messages from my team members that we have to do a group photo. And some people have to, log out a little earlier than 4:30. So if I can quickly ask everyone to be on video for 30 seconds, and we will, do a quick group photo so that we have captured everyone and we don't miss out on people who may have to drop out a little earlier today. All right, so Pranjali, Vijay, Amit, Shreya, if you guys can also come online, it'll be nice. We'll fill up the screen and we will take a quick photo and move on to our second discussion. Amit, I'm hoping, we can take the picture now. We are still missing the 3 of you.
Just like always, I'll be at the back. So people just 1, 2, 3 and give us up a, I'll quickly say 1, 2, 3, just give up a good smile. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. On that note, let's move on to the second group. I have, the list of participants here with me. So for the second group discussion, we are requesting Sunanda, Mohit, Chris, Vidisha, Dr. Pradeep, and Moshumi to be on camera and off mute. The question that we are asking is, how can we build learning resilience and adoption in the new normal? And I will definitely post that question in the chat as well. We have a quick 15 minutes to do this discussion, so off you go.
So Neha, shall I start?
Absolutely, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think the solution in terms of learning adoption and continuity and sustenance of engagement in the learning process. So that actually depends on learner preferences and the learning culture already existing in the organization and how it might evolve going forward. So therefore, there may not be one solution which is common to all organizations or a best practice around that. It is really very contextual to that organization. And it also looks at, I think, what is the digital maturity currently in the organization, because what one organization is able to do and the learning preferences of people there may be different from what is happening elsewhere. And therefore, it's important we seek out our own unique solution as L&D professionals. So I think that is one thing I wanted to say. The second thing is, while because of COVID, onset of COVID, it has helped us in terms of adoption of the digital learning mode by a whole lot of people, which earlier they thought was not possible, or it won't work out, or it won't be good enough. But now there is acceptance that that's a channel or a mode which will work. That said, still, once we move to a situation where face-to-face becomes possible, I still think that there will be 60 to 65% learning that actually happens face-to-face. And while right now it's all, for example, in Tata Steel, it's 95% digital, right? There's no face-to-face, hardly any face-to-face. But I think that 95%, though it will reduce, but still there will be, the dominant mode of learning still, I think, will be face-to-face. And therefore, the key thing is to make a judicious choice as to what kind of learning mode will work for what kind of purpose and what kind of context that we have, the culture in the organization. So I think, so when we look at that, so if I look at broadly the different modes that I see right now, so one is in terms of the normal face-to-face that we had earlier, where we go off on a 2-day program or a 5-day program, and there are all those beautiful breaks with snacks and all that. So that is one that has always been there. The second one is a virtual instructor-led training. And this is different from the webinar. So we have webinars every day, and quite a few of them are free. So I'm not talking of that. It's actually a training that happens virtually. So therefore, just to keep it distinct from that. So virtual instructor-led training. The third format is where the individual can do anytime, anywhere. I mean, wherever they are at their own pace and so on. And this is where the e-learning and online or digital simulations come in. And here, people don't need to be all connected at the same time. So then there is the traditional one-on-one coaching at middle and senior levels that is on, and maybe for high potentials, and that may get converted to a digital and more volume-based coaching, given the kind of shifts that we are looking at in the environment. So therefore, already the point about business models, etc., has been brought in. And so what are the business needs? Aligned to that, what is the specific audience we are looking at? What are the new capabilities that have become relevant? And for that, given the learning preferences of our people, so therefore, what would be delivered in which mode? And it need not be an either or choice. It can be blended learning to offer the most powerful design and solution. But I just wanted to mention a couple of drivers that actually lead us more towards the digital front. So if our workforce is geographically dispersed, right? If cost effectiveness is an important criterion, if we want to actually deliver micro learning and have greater flexibility in scheduling, right? So if these are the driving forces, so then it moves us towards digital and online kind of learning. And whereas if it is going to be highly interactive and where a lot of group discussions, engagement has to happen, and maybe it's about creative ideas, brainstorming, and such activities are part of the engagement. So then a face-to-face is likely to be more preferred, and where cost is not such a major factor. And this can happen maybe twice in a year or thrice a year, whereas the other one is more cost effective and can happen more frequently. So I think this is the choice that needs to be made. And key thing is curation is key. So like somebody has already mentioned, there's a lot of content and a lot of good content. Everything seems to be fine. But then more relevant, more purposeful, and less is more. Somebody mentioned minimalist. So less is more. And to see that otherwise people are getting overwhelmed with the kind of learning opportunities landing on their table. So I think this is what I wanted to quickly share. So it's about making the right choice relevant to the context, learning preferences of the organization, and focusing on capabilities which are critical for the organization.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, sir. I'll quickly go to Sunanda now, who I think is ready with her points. Go ahead, Sunanda, tell her.
Right. Thank you very much, Neha. Before that, I would just like to say a very good evening to all of you. Thanks to Vijay for an excellent presentation, and I've interacted with Pranjali and thinly with Amit as well. So nice to meeting you in this forum. Pretty excited. So I just want to keep it crisp because in the interest of time and for everyone. So since the topic is about learning resilience, just to let you all know what we did in our organization, because we've all gone through a bigger crisis, totally unexpected, and a lot of panic and things like that. So a lot of shift had to be made from what we were traditionally doing in the organization. And then we had to quickly redesign the content, make it more virtual apt kind of a session. Like Vijay mentioned, the design has to be so apt because the focus is more on the content and not on you, because people are like glued into the system and seeing how the content is being designed and how interesting it is. So we had to bring in a lot of shift, and thereby we realized, I think in the beginning, in order to have people change their mindset from where they were enjoying a face-to-face session to a virtual session, because there was a lot of resistance. Because in a organization that we are working in, which is a pharma setup, which is more into a manufacturing and operational setup, people liked face-to-face, to be frank. They never embraced digitization. They never wanted online training sessions. So it was a big challenge for us to ensure that online training can also be as effective as face-to-face. So we had to literally decide on what we need to bring in the change. So as a first step, what we did was we, like Hani said, we worked on an extensive program on our mental wellness, because they're already going through a certain crisis. They're going through different changes. It's a new normal now. Some of the employees were asked to come to work in the office because they're in the production, and some of the employees were asked to work from home. So they had to work around the different normalcy and different procedures. So we thought, okay, now we need to focus on the mental wellness part of the employees. So that was given the focus. So it was more on the building resilience, building how to be mindful, yoga, and how to manage your stress. And so extensive programs were run, and we found great benefit out of it. And later on, whenever we did all the virtual sessions, there was a bit of benefit element was portrayed in our sessions, saying how online training sessions can also be beneficial. So I think for everyone, what's in it for me in terms of how it would benefit me, I think there would be a mindset shift in order to come out of that resistance and expecting only face-to-face session would be beneficial. And after the training session, we've had many people coming out to us and telling us that we didn't know that virtual session can also be more interactive, more where we can build network, where we can ask a lot of questions similar to face-to-face session. And we kind of brought in that kind of a shift. And I'm telling you, it's still in a process. It's not that everyone have changed, but it's a process. So something as a step, I would say, to build a learning resilience is to bring in some certain sort of a belief that yes, I can learn in any modality the learning is given. It could be online learning, it could be virtual, it could be e-learning. So that is the belief that we need to, as an L&D professional, we try to bring in that belief within our employees and ensure that the connect is still happening. I always do not understand why they kept the name social distancing. Why not physical distancing? Because we need to still connect socially and keep it physical distancing. That would help you keep keep us away from COVID, but we still need to connect socially, because that would give us a lot of learning from each other, sharing the experiences. So social connect should always be there. And as a next step, trying to support our employees during our training sessions to be positive, have that mindset of how virtual learning can also bring in a lot of benefits. And I'm sure all of us, understand that when we started off, it was all haywire, it was all confusing, it was all messed up. Now we've got a certain routine, because it's been like 6 months or probably more than that since the pandemic struck us, and now we have a certain routine. So it's all about how I get used to the different new normal. So once we understand that this new normal would support us, and this is the kind of learning would support me, I think that habit would drive us to do or bring in that shift in the mindset. And lastly, I think I just want to reiterate, once we bring in the understanding of the online learning benefits to people, I think people would start embracing the online learning. Just with adding to the note in terms of how we can also bring in that pull factor for employees to do the online learning is, I thought, if not having the session for a stretch of 2 long hours or even 3 long hours, that's what we minimum keep it for a virtual session. Why can't we have something like, learning bites, like, something that pops up in your learning platform and say, hey, do you know collaboration? This is the new tip that I can help you with. So people would just take 2 minutes to learn that. And it can be in the form of a polling. It can be in the form of asking a certain question. And the moment they answer, that they've learned it. So it could be one word learning. It could be one topic learning. It's still a learning end of the day. So thereby, bringing in that pull, bringing in that engagement from the learners, and then thereby embrace online learning. So hereby, I would just end the session. I just want to talk more on the learning resilience part. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Sunanda. And I'll quickly go to Chris, who's been waiting to speak as well. So yeah, go ahead, Chris, tell us what's on your mind. And are you on mute, Chris? I'm not able to hear you. Is anyone able to hear him?
No, we are not able to hear him.
No.
He's on mute. He's on mute. Yeah.
No, I think he's unmuting, and even then we are not able to hear him. Chris, maybe you want to sign out and sign back in. Sometimes that helps. Good old troubleshooting. In the meantime, I'll quickly go to Vidisha. Vidisha, do tell us if you have a few points you'd like to share with us on how to build learning resilience.
Thanks, Neha. Thank you so much. First of all, let me thank the entire Shram team and Vijay, of course, for the great presentation, and Amit for always remembering to have me involved in these wonderful discussions. So I'll keep it very short because I think we've heard so much from everybody today. But when I was looking at this question, I'm just going to refer to the chat. It says, how can we build learning resilience and adoption in the new normal? Now, I want to state this, that, a large part of my career in time over the last, decade or so, and even now with Welspun being a manufacturing industry, I'm always pained by this question that why do we have to keep learners going to learners and tell them come for training sessions, or, after a point of time, they get fatigued. And, I've been really, and that's why I said, pensive, Vidisha, because that's what I've been thinking of for a few days, that is it the quality of learning, or is it the quality of the design content? Because sometimes there is some really world-class stuff, because I did hear, in the last discussion, they're doing so much for content, there's so much design things happening. We're trying our best to get learners engaged. But why is it still that, people are always a step back and not coming, forward to say, hey, I want to learn? So I think for me, to create learning resilience in an organization, I think one, it takes a lot of time because it's a top-down and bottom-up approach. Because, as I've always seen that learning is a culture that starts from top, but that is a little slow because it's still pushed. But I think to do both, you need to have, to create resilience in learners and to ensure that they, come abreast and say, oh, hey, I want to learn today. I'm waking up. Is it somewhere we need to sort of, bring about this level, increase the level of curiosity? So I don't have that answer yet, but that's something that I'm reading and trying to learn more about, that how do you really, that's a very human thing to do. Whatever comes easily to us and handed over to us. Like I did hear somebody mention that, if it's given to me fine, I'll do it, right? But if I have to go and learn, browse, do it on my own, I will not maybe do it. So what is this question with curiosity? Why as human beings or as learners or employees, we're not curious enough to learn? So I think the question that you have is a question in my mind as well about how do you inculcate not just learning resilience, but how do you inculcate curiosity in the minds of people? And one way, of course, to do that is to set some examples to leaders in the organization. But the other thing that I've been thinking about, and I think Vijay did mention this in his presentation, he said that, making learning relevant to the role. See, because I think time and again, we can't be taking this ownership for learning in the organization and telling, hey, talking to the CEOs, talking to the learners, this is good for you, this is good for you. Somewhere they have to see this bear fruit for their own growth within the organization. And I think the adoption as L&D or as in the future, we need to do that. Today we have a plethora of platforms. We have Degree, Dapsa, Udemy, Unacademy, Skillsofts, and all of that. But I think what we really need is to be able to answer that question that if I'm an employee today and I need X number of skills today, and if I go and learn, I'm going to easily able to complete learning 10 modules, which will help me fulfill these 3-4 skills that I'm not good at. And as a process of that, either I move, my role enriches, or I move to getting a higher designation. So it sort of really needs to come back to say that, what's in it for me from a career standpoint, and what's in it for me from, let's say, a larger human being standpoint. So what I mean by that, many organizations, I'm sure all of you, we do Hogan for all the senior people who come into the organization. Now, what do we do with that information, right? So one, of course, is the orient the person. But I think, I don't know who said it, but I completely agree that learning has to be on 2 tracks. One is at a macro level, which you do, maybe large leadership programs, but learning has to get hyper personalized. It has to get, that's where really L&D teams can use AI and machine learning to really profile the learners, really profile. One is their, personality profiling, their behavior, all of that. The other is their skill in terms of their role, and then take that information and marry it with what is available in the market today through, different content providers, maybe different coaches. So I think that is where this curiosity will start building with learners, because today I think as a learner, if I were to step back and put myself in the learner's shoe, I'm like, okay, fine, I've attended 100 webinars this year. So what? At the end of the day, my rating, my manager gives me rating about, how much sales I did, or, how much of efficiency and cost. How many times do managers really go back and look at this learning hours and say, hey, how have you progressed? So I think even for the manager, it's very difficult, because they are also not able to visualize it that, okay, so Vidisha did 100 webinars. So how has this directly helped or linked this to her career or her personal growth? So I think that's where we really need to work with, machine learning and AI to help us bring that. And I think that's where L&D I see is playing, will play a big role for the future. And to sum it up quickly, Neha, because I keep looking at the time and I'm saying, okay, I think I don't want to overshoot the time. But I definitely feel that as practitioners of this function, which we are also passionate about, learning, growth, curiosity, I think we need to all probably, ask that question ourselves, that what would make us curious? Because I always tell this to my team, Neha, that, we probably are very motivated to learn, read, and do things, but 35,000 other employees have a full day job where probably they don't have the time to even think about all of this. So unless you link into saying, hey, if you do this, this is how you grow personally. If you do this, this is how you grow functionally. I don't think we will be able to build that resilience. And that's where we should hop on to the technology wheel of AI and ML, use our learning vendors, learning content writers and partners to help us achieve that. And I think that is really what the future of a successful L&D function will entail.
Absolutely. There's some wonderful comments that are coming in the chat, so you may want to take a look, but thank you. That was such a nice perspective to share. Quickly, Chris, have we got you on audio now? Can we hear you? Let's try this out.
Let's see, I'm hoping so.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, hallelujah. All right, thanks so much, and sorry about I think that's one of the challenges for L&D, right? Networks today not being what there is. I was listening to the three esteemed panelists, and they were talking, and a lot of the points are more interlinked. But there was one thing which we tried to do, because every organization is in a different facet or phase of their learning journey. Now, you first say we'll teach you, then we move to intrigue. Let's intrigue you. I think today a big part of it is telling our employees, we'll enable you to do what you guys want to do. But what the employees came back and told us is, you guys don't understand what we are going through during this time. There is no now working from home. That means there's no downtime. So there's no travel time from the office home. So we get calls, we do all of this work this time. How do you expect us to learn? That was one of the challenges which we took over. To say, all right, so we actually scale down on our learning activities. One is just to say, okay, we understand what you are. This is the beginning of the work. As we move on, one of the big things what we've done is we've linked learning to engagement, right? And to get people on a forum like this to say, we can train you, we can help you develop through these modems. And they said, no, you can't, because we're going to get bored, people are not going to put on their camera. So we said, okay, we'll link it with engagement. And we ran engagement activities, which got about 40 or 50% of the workforce connected and intrigued with it. And then we said, okay, we got them and said, now that this works, how about you come in for a training program with the same people who launched those engagement programs? So there was a bit of buy-in there, and that's when we started getting much more traction. The second piece of the whole thing was to tell learners that you don't need to learn and spend 2 hours sitting in front of a laptop doing a learning course. We said, don't do that. But we tied up with one of our learning partners where there was bite-sized learning through them at the touch of their fingers, because we realized that everyone today has mobile phones and they use Netflix and everything's at the touch of their fingers. So you need to take learning to them, right? So we tied up with one of our training partners where bite-sized learning comes to you. They can do it whenever they want. They get nudges, and it's all small. So it's about 15 minutes sometimes a week. As small as it could be 5 minutes a day, right? Put them through that. Because of that and the certificates that came out from that, there's much more intrigue which you've got. Now what we are saying is, now we're in a place to say, now how we're going to link this to your development and what Khadija was saying about roles and functions, etc. And that was one of the big things which we looked at. The other aspect is, which is very difficult to do, is try to maneuver it top down to say no calls after 6 o'clock. Literally, because you have people working around the clock from home, they have families, and there's just no time. And you're actually putting much more pressure on them, saying, okay, we need to learn. So we said, can you try to do no calls after 6 or no call after 7? Very difficult to do, but that's something what actually helps in this resilience, because it shows people what the organization is capable of. And finally, showcase a bit of success stories, right? So through our learning programs and through our partners, we actually have various gamified versions of games within. So 25 courses, they get a treasure star or something like that, which actually brings them together on a large platform, and showcase their results on a forum, or just get people through our recognition platforms, just thanking them or saying, great stuff, you helped me with this. People then going ahead and recommending courses and doing all of that. So we're trying to do all of that because we are in that phase of our journey. And the last point, what we also try to do is build this resilience and adoption, is give programs or facilitate programs meant for the participant and not because you're a good facilitator. So if I am facilitating a program where there are, let's say there's an investment team there, they are not too worried about gamification or things like that. They're looking at hardcore content and how they can do their job better. So to make sure that you marry both of them, the facilitator as well as your audience, and then you've got some buy-in, and then you just take it away from them. But at the end of the day, if it's not top down and not people pushing it, then it becomes a little difficult to build. So I know we're running out of time, so I'll stop there. But that's just my.
No, yeah, I tried to do this in 90 minutes, but it seems like 90 minutes tend to fall short. So let's quickly hear Padma Shri, who's been silently observing these conversations. Padma Shri, if you'd like to tell us, and I hope we have not lost you. Seems like we have. Akhilesh, do we still have you? Would you like to share your observations with us very quickly? looks like Akhilesh, audio has some trouble as well. So you may have to type it out for us. We can't hear you. And if I get Padmashri back, I'll have her quickly share with us.
So it may go
Yes.
on and off, and that's one of the troubles of technology.
Yes,
I hope it should be back. Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks so much. I was so keenly absorbing everything. I didn't even notice the time. So just a quick heads up. I'm not trying to rush things, but I want to just on a personal note, what has affected me very strongly. I'll just list out that.
Sure.
Not as a. I hope it's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Starting with Dr. Pradeep, what hit out was, you need to understand the digital adaptability and the uniqueness of an organization towards digital adaptability. So that's one thing which stood out very, very strongly. And, the intelligence to choose between which could be a virtual-led training and which could be a, has to be a face-to-face intervention, and not mixing up the two things. So these points came out very strongly from Dr. Pradeep. From Sunanda, the pain of, looking at mental wellness of people while, while we are calling them to training programs, while we are calling them for learning, the requirement or the need for addressing their mental wellness, not only to handle the learning, but also to process the change that they have been through, processing the shock. Some people coming in, some people not coming in, and how do you manage both set of learners? And gaining the acceptance of micro learning. It was difficult for people to move out from face-to-face to virtual, and gaining that acceptance was a very, important point here. With Vidisha, what turned out to be very strongly is how do you apply? So you have all these tools, machine learning, AI, and everything, but how do I deploy that? So deploying that with an intention of having a targeted learning, which is going to give me a maximum impact. That's a very big piece here. And how do I look at building resilience as a matter of culture, not as a matter of mandate. So resilience is not what I build, it is what I grow over a period of time as an organization. So that's a very important point that was brought in here. And one of the greatest what actually gives me a kick is what Chris said. Switching off after 6 p.m. It's not easy. And even when you want to switch off, others would not want you to switch off. That's another challenge. Some people say that I want to switch off, some people say I won't switch off. So that's one thing. But yes, understanding learners' challenges, not telling them everything because I am the facilitator. It's about what this guy needs. Moving on from a learner-centric, from a facilitator-centric learning to a learner-centric learning is, we've been saying that, but doing that has become possible, or it has been mandated because of the pandemic. That has made us move on to that direction very fast. And again, getting into bite-sized learning. As I said, give me only what I can actually absorb and digest. Sure. So that's a very important piece. Right. Now, adding on to this, I hope Padmashri is back. Would you want to?
Yes, Padmashri is back, and I want to give her the last word now that everyone's spoken. Padmashri, very quickly, if you'd like to share your observations with us.
Sure. One of the things that I found very interesting in our discussion today was the fact that everybody mentioned that engagement has to be really purposeful. It's not just from our discussion, but also from the previous discussion that we've had. So it's no longer just to, if I could borrow words from Akhilesh, it's moving away from a facilitator-centric program or a learning journey into something that is very specific to each of our learners. So it has to fall into the category of purposeful engagement for them. Therefore, how we and the methodologies of how we follow through in order to achieve that would be whether to incorporate or incorporate a sense of curiosity as a culture in the mindsets of our learners, or whether we utilize the opportunities that machine learning and AI brings to us. Those are the second or the third part of what we say. But again, the overall concept of how we engage our employees or our learners and eventually achieve the outcome is going to be very specific. And we as people from L&D have to move away from the tried and tested path and perhaps go into the unknown areas and be more creative, perhaps redesign, reinvent our own thinking in order to make that happen. If I could just use those words to say whatever I want to say in a nutshell.
Reimagine and reinvent it in 2020 and take that 2022 at least. That will be like L&D in the next 2 years. Thank you so much, everyone. And on that note, I quickly wanted to sort of take you to the Menti screen. I had one more thing planned for you. Now, if you could quickly go to a browser window and use the code that you see on the screen, which is 879790, and tell us what will be the key skills needed by the employees and L&D alike to thrive in the new world order. Your top 3, if you'd like to quickly share with us, that's where we will end our today's session. I'll quickly invite Vijay and Amit after this for final remarks, and then we will definitely let you go. And the code is 879790. You could try accessing it on your mobile device or on a separate browser window. Should work. Wonderful. So resourcefulness right now is in the middle. I'm hoping that more people said that. It's 2 of you right now. So yeah, very quickly, if you could tell us what are those top skills that you foresee. Letting go, that's quite interesting. Wonderful. As you keep that coming, Vijay, if I could quickly request you to share with us your observations of our entire discussion and what's really standing out for you. The question that you had asked all our panelists here today.
First of all, thank you so much to everyone. I think it was, I was definitely fully engaged for the entire session. And you know, a lot of different perspectives coming out from everyone. If I were to summarize what I think you know, everyone said in terms of how is L&D going to evolve and look like in the next 2 years, I think there's one short word, there's a lot of work. Okay, so there's a lot of hard work that everyone has to have to put in. And primarily in the area of digital, in the area of well-being. If I look at just from a content standpoint, digital and mental well-being and all that. And I think the other thing which came out very interestingly was that the role of L&D is essentially making sure that the different technologies that are available today, new technologies. How do you bring it together for your company or for your organization? There are a lot of new things available right now, but I think meaningfully bringing it in the context of the organization, I think that will be one of the key roles that we have to play. And the last thing was the whole engagement piece. And what I would leave you with is that I don't know if how many of you have done. There's this course called the Science of Wellbeing on Coursera. I don't know if anyone have done this program. I will just urge, if you have not, then I would urge you to do it. It's run by a professor from Yale called Laurie Santos, and the thing that stood out for me in that course is it's an offline, completely asynchronous course, but it teaches the same concept in so many different ways that, like, I for myself, I did not complete the course. I did not go to the reading material. I did it. It's a 6-7 week course. I could not go beyond 2 weeks. But then it also has a podcast embedded into it. I started listening to the podcast. At the end of it, whatever content was there as a part of the course, I still got it. And I still benefited a lot from the course. But I thought it's a very interesting design that one could probably look at it, and then it could be one of the things that which could help us to think about design, engagement, and bringing different technologies together. So yeah, that's from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vijay. And Amit, your last words from you before I close the session today. I had really hoped to keep it in time, but the insights were so interesting that I got a little biased. Amit, are you there with us?
Yes, I think on the contrary, as Vijay mentioned, it's like one of the very few 90 minutes I've sat through without being distracted at all. So for me, it was an amazing experience. I think two things really stood out for me and very refreshing is, during our conversations with the clients so far, I see a big change in the metrics I heard today, from completions it is right now, and which is really, really exciting is, mental wellness of the employees and, being really mindful of what they're going through. And in terms of not burdening them with, just courses, it is also being really very careful about what they need, and even then giving them only bite size, because I think this is a big change, the kind of empathy which I saw today. This is a big change, and I think this is where it will all change. And if L&D can and if they already started doing that, I think it'll be a big change in how we perceive learning and development. It is no more going to be just pushing training. It has to be something which is built into the context of business, and from there it is built into the employees work life. And from there, I think it is something which enables. I think I heard the word that it's more of an enabler. I think that is a very refreshing change from what I have experienced in the last 13-14 years. Today if I talk to L&D teams about what they need as solutions to their challenges, I think these never came up so far, till about a few months back. I think that's a huge change. And from a perspective of business owner, I think it's very important that employees, before learners, that looked at as employees and business people, and their mental well-being, their learning well-being is taken care of. I think that is done properly. I would say businesses will benefit in the long run, and learning culture will evolve very positively, because we are giving a lot of responsibility to the learners, and I think people react positively when they are given responsibility. A lot of them would want to do that, and they would do a lot of learning. So I think I'm very excited about what we discussed today. Thank you everyone for sharing the wonderful thoughts, really, really deep insights. And I hope, as a service provider, we can bring in some of these solutions to what we do. So thank you again.
Thanks, everyone. And before I let you go, I'd asked for 5 minutes extension and it's inching to 15 minutes. Apologies. But do tell us if this was a useful investment of your time and if you would recommend this session to others. If you have any suggestions, share with us in the chat window. But once again, thanks a lot for taking time out, sharing such wonderful insights and with so much candor, which makes these experiences even more powerful. We hope to have you for other sessions. Our conference is coming up next week. So hope to see you there. It's from the 9th to 11th of December next week. Thanks again. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Good day, everyone.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Very good
Bye-bye.
session.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody, bye-bye.
Thank you.